So, welcome everybody. Today, I'm excited to have Matt Klee or Matthew Klee. Do you prefer Matt or Matthew?
They all work.
They all work. Okay,
It's
excellent. So, we've got Matt on the call with us, and he is the CEO, president of the Zero Point Energy Project Group, which is the same group that Brian Zazzara talked about with us last week, of which he's a co-founder. So Matt is kind of organizing and heading the project, and we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. So I'll jump right in. So Matt, thanks for making the time. Excited to have you here, and
Thank you.
yeah, I'd like to really go over primarily the group, whatever general organizational overview you can provide, and also how it's different perhaps from maybe any other similar groups out there, and helping us all in the community understand, how to pick the real deal from perhaps the people that aren't necessarily doing this from the same place that ZPEPG is doing it from. So can you expound on that?
Sure. Thanks again for the opportunity. Um, Things are moving quite quickly now, and it seems like we're getting a little traction. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to people about it and help raise understanding of what we're about. Uh, the group is relatively new. It started approximately 2 years ago with Matthew Eisenberg and Brian Zazzara and another person who's no longer active with us because of work and family stuff. We are an all volunteer organization.
Mm,
So even though I'm president and CEO and Brian's the treasurer and the other founder is a board member, none of us is paid. In fact, in order to be a board member, you have to donate. So that's
mm.
in our bylaws too. So I'll volunteer, and so because of that, there there's not any full-time people except perhaps a couple of us who are retired.
Okay.
That didn't start until about a year ago. So Brian and Matthew Eisenberg and others got together interestingly from the ET connection and through association with Dr. Stephen Greer's site and being ambassadors to that, and as several of your people might be as well. That's how I found out about this group. And there was one aspect that motivated them is that uh, uh, Greer is extremely good at what he does, which is the disclosure stuff. But uh, that's one aspect. The other aspect is there's 0 point energy devices that credibly have been produced that can generate electricity out of the quantum vacuum, and yet they're not available. And there's almost enough information on many approaches, and Brian talked to you about a few of the approaches that are uh, high on our list to work on. There's some that are really close, and it just takes a focused minds and coordination in order to do that. So that is why the group was formed. There were people who were motivated. Brian has been in, he probably told you, for over 20 years. Matthew's is an electrical engineer. He's been an electrical engineer and interested in this and runs a CE5 group out of New Jersey for decades, and uh, there are many engineers in our group and other participants in our group who are lifers in this arena.
Mm,
But what was lacking was the coordination. And, there is a lot of concern because, well, why haven't these devices made it to the market?
yeah.
And so there's a lot of information out there and opinions, some very credible, that has been suppressed and or bought and then suppressed, or worse. So why now is kind of the question. We all through our intuition and our conscious connection feel that now's the time. And even as evidenced by now, there are Senate hearings talking a little bit about ET stuff and technology, and that aspect is getting a little more airtime and
Mm,
is rising to the surface. We feel, and the additional factor that there are all these social media that are available now that weren't in the past. So if one were to have a working design, which is our goal, is to vet a technology or more than one, and then document it. We have a whole list of criteria for appropriate, validated approaches. If that's met and we've been able to reproduce it in a scientific way, document it, we will release it as widely, as quickly as possible. We want free information flowing in a way that would be hard to suppress.
Is
So
that what
that's our
makes
goal.
the group unique? Is there any other group that does this openly and freely and in a collaborative way like that?
Certainly not in the way we do it. So that's one aspect, is we are totally volunteer. So none of us is getting that kind of money out of it. We have bylaws, which means that we're here for the group and the mission, which is to make the information available without compensation. We won't be selling anything. We don't sell devices. We don't sell the plans. We're going to give the plans away.
How
And
would
for
people
that,
get a device in that case?
okay, so it's a very good question. So part of the organization part, one is organizing the technical aspects. Brian's talking about teams with backgrounds and interest in researching and then applying the scientific process to evaluating and vetting and improving and building and testing in a way that we're confident. So we have we have our criteria, and we have like in industry, we have requirements for the document, and they will be tested to those requirements. And that includes, and that's available. The requirements document is available on our members website. So even that kind of stuff we're making available for people to review and contribute to, and understand what it is we're trying to do. But these approaches will be tested to those requirements. And then, so we have to build more than one, and they have to work according and meet the requirements. And the requirements are certainly over Unity, but that's not even what we're talking about. Over Unity is we get more energy out than we put in. We're talking about devices that are 1,000 times over or more energy out than what we're putting in. So if you can tap the quantum vacuum, it's a huge multiplier, and then it can self-sustain and that. So that's our hope. And there is evidence, credible evidence, that some of those styles have existed in the past. There's a lot of stuff out there that's crap, that's bullshit, and you can go down a rabbit hole because it sounds good and you really want it to work, and then you notice, well, it doesn't look like he really tested that right, because there's 3 ways that could be a bad reading, and we're not seeing where all the chords are going, and so maybe that's all. And so that's how we approach it. And so I haven't seen one that works yet. I've seen some that might have worked. And so Brian's talked about, this is how we do it. It's work. It is work. And the part of the work is to research what do we know? What are people telling us? And if we can get our hands on, we have a couple proposed devices or approaches that the inventors or those who claim to have one that's working are willing to share, but there's still some money involved for them to say, I've invested this kind of money in it, and I'm willing to give it up, for open sourcing, but I still need, I don't know, I still need something out of it, okay? Or I am so busy with my other stuff that's making me money, in order for me to work with you to get it there, then I basically need to be compensated for my time as I'm doing it, And so part of my job as the CEO is to be working on the contracts and say, if, the criteria for acceptance criteria, the performance criteria and all that kind of stuff, but then we need money. So if we go backwards to the corporate structure, and how we are and how we are different. At about a year ago, the organization was developed by Matthew and Brian and others, but they were meeting on calls, but there was no coordination. And I heard about them, and I'm a doer. I want to, and I'm late to the game. So I retired and then started getting into this kind of stuff, which wasn't even on my,
Got it.
yeah, it wasn't on the radar. And
Hey,
so
Matt, the two technologies you mentioned that you guys are focusing on that are close, that are perhaps in the hands of the inventors, or you need a, are those, which technologies are those? And
there's a solid state one,
okay,
which would be the ideal, or the ideal. If you look at our our requirements are musts and wants. So it must do this. Then the wants are, it'd be nice if it would do this. And then there are some delighters, which are it'd be really, really good if they can add this in, but you can still do something if you just get the wants, right? And
okay,
the solid state pretty much fills the board because
wow,
it's smaller physical space, no moving parts. It's a lot of this cold electricity is you can get more current out of without creating heat. I know this is what they say. Well, I'll test it and we'll find out. But anyway, it seems like these things in a like a cooler size or a standard like gas generator that you'd have, when a storm comes, that kind of a size, able to produce 10 to 20 kilowatts
oh wow, wait,
continuously,
what size?
continuously,
What size?
like a normal gas generator.
Oh wow, okay.
So that would be the ideal, because that would meet the thing where that you could put it anywhere. And
And
it
what
once you get it started with a little bit of stuff, it self-sustains and just goes.
and what makes you confident that, since you haven't seen one or actually worked on one, which I understand how difficult that can be, what how just so people listening can understand, what makes you feel confident that particularly the solid state device is real, and if you were to get the funding tomorrow, you know that you would be able to come back and say 3 to 6 months and say, guys, here we go. How, like, what makes you feel confident that that's something that's feasible?
I am hopeful. Confidence is um my role is to coordinate, help prioritize, focus, and rein in the cats. Because a lot of the people are easily excited about things and can get distracted. Because a lot of these are very creative minds and stuff, and we want to make sure we get coordinated and stuff. So my confidence is built when there's a consistency in the information, when we have a relationship with a person that's more than a few months, and through that relationship over time, we have uh, grown to trust what they're saying.
Mm.
And then my job is to write a contract, which is you're going to get paid, but you're going to get paid, in pieces over time with milestones. And those milestones are tied to the requirements. What's the device supposed to do? And these are the things. And we're not signing any contracts and with them unless they have the full picture of what it is, including those performance criteria. And so they are agreeing, like any contract, to provide a service and parts and pieces and training or consulting for something. And that something is my job to define it in a way that says this is what we're paying for, and we're not paying for if it doesn't work. So
Excellent.
it's a business aspect, from that standpoint. So
Yeah.
that's the best we can do. Right now,
And
we have other ones where people have said, this might have worked, this device might have worked in the past, or it supposedly worked in the past, but not as well as we wanted to. And then we put it on the shelf for 30 years. So you can have it and learn what you can. Well, that's good too. And so we have one of those. And then we have some other ones that we're talking that Brian talked about, the crystal sort of thing,
oh yeah.
Vogel crystal, and that's relatively new. It's unknown, but in that case, we it's a process. We get the information, we do some minimal testing, we try to vet Where is it coming from? Does it make sense? Does it fit in with what we have researched and found in that category elsewhere? So if those things are consistent, you start to build a little bit of more confidence from that. But when it comes to money, that's exactly why I drove the organization to become an official C Corp 501c3 nonprofit, because the solid state device, it might be $500,000 to get the pieces. For prototypes are expensive, and the pieces and parts are expensive. They get cheaper as you learn more and do them. But right now, the parts and pieces are commercially available, kind of, but they're so low volume and high trickiness that they're very expensive. So it's like $500,000. So I'm like thinking to myself, $500,000 coming through our organization that has no, formal structure is not going to work. And
Yeah.
so I also wanted to have a business structure that people could have confidence that it's following the rules. So it has a board. We have 3 board of directors. We have 3 officers. It's a C Corp in Massachusetts, because that's where I am. And even though our membership is all over the place, we have people all over the country as well as Europe and Asia. But the
Okay.
company 501c3, as an extra layer of, in order to get qualified as a 501c3, you have to meet certain criteria, which I think are important. And if you're going to donate money, it's legitimate from that standpoint. So it's
It's a
tax
write-off.
deductible. So that form of legitimacy and control differentiates us from a lot of the other organizations out there that are looking for, give us some money because we have some great stuff to work on. They don't have the
Right.
structure. We are also implementing a lot of what we'll call corporate oversight stuff. So we have processes and procedures that are being documented. We're using some standard web management tools, which help us be consistent and keep our documentation of everything we're doing under control.
Okay.
And so even though we're volunteers, we're like corporate structure oriented.
Got it. So it's really well organized, and the structure is being built out. Again, keeping in mind everyone are volunteers. So going back real briefly to the solid state, and then I'll move on to the organization because I'm really curious about how the teams work and everything.
Sure.
But just on the solid state technology, um, if you had the funds, say tomorrow, how confident are you that this thing's actually going to do what it's purported to do?
85%.
85? It's
Yeah.
pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. But but again, it has enough of the stuff we're looking for that, it's hard to parse my hope and excitement. That's what the contracts are for. But based on our relationship and based on what we know, it's high in my list. High
It's
in,
my understanding that the engineer that's working on this has already worked on this technology in the past. And
supposedly providing it to others who are
okay,
not making it public.
got it. Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of cloak and dagger in this part of technology, as everyone listening most likely knows it by this point. So that makes sense to me. And again, thanks so much for doing that work, Matt. And it's fantastic. I'm excited to hear more and see how that progresses. Now, talking about the Zero Point Energy Project Group, which the acronyms are ZPEPG. Can you tell me briefly how big is it now? How many members do we have? And secondly, how would you explain, because I'll have a link to the website, people can view the site, but how would you describe how why each team is there and how they sort of work together as a whole to make it what it is?
Yeah, so the founders had some industrial background and realized that things get done if the teams are focused on a specific um, subject or topic or area, and that they're not too big, right? So they early on came up with the team approach, and it's a volunteer sort of thing. We have a really large diversity in the need of in skills that we need, like any organization. but ours has another key differentiator. One of our key teams is the consciousness team. I don't know that any other organization has that aspect. And what we've found, we technical people who are scientists and engineers have found there's an aspect of consciousness in some of this, how these things work. So that's a new, different, weird sort of thing for a lot of people who haven't been in this for a while. Dr. Greer talks about consciousness assisted machines and machine assisted consciousness and some of the stuff that he talks about. And we know from the prior art that's out there that often the inventors are the only ones that can get stuff to work. So one aspect of that could be because they're not telling you what the secret is. But the other aspect is they're adding the consciousness aspect. They don't even know they're doing it. They're adding Stan Myers with the water stuff was very religious, and he was doing it for Jesus, and his words, you could see that intent and that consciousness is Jesus consciousness, or that love consciousness was in everything he did. Then there was another water guy in Australia, Joe, who if you want to look it up, Joe Sell. They don't know his last name. He was also like that. So that consciousness sort of thing. And so there's this aspect, and some of the devices we're looking at have an attribute, and even the crystal sort of thing. There's a feeling, the intuition, the download feedback that people are getting, that there's a consciousness aspect. And what does that even mean? Right? What does consciousness mean? What does that mean? Yes, exactly. Yes. And so we're learning. But we are part of the group that we're in. That's their forte. These are people who are consistently getting downloads. They may not be technical, and they'll show up with a picture and say, I got this download, I'm supposed to show it to someone. And they go, oh, we were just talking about that in the, it's weird, the synchronicity that we get from them when we look for their help. They also tend to be people who have had astral or ET contacts for a long time, and their consciousness, their vibration is pretty high. And so by collectively being in the group, they raise all of our consciousness up. And so each of us is better at that kind of stuff as a group. We have a lot of group meditations. We have specific sub teams there. Some are doing dowsing for information. Some are doing remote viewing to try to view and visualize things. They have practices, and we call them deep dives to learn more and about these, because we are always learning. And so we may have a gift, we share it, but then we're going to learn from other people. So in this category of consciousness, that's one real exciting part that I don't know any other group that's doing that. And we benefit from it, and we appreciate it. Another one is a database team. So we have, I talked about the prior art. There are a lot of patents. There are a lot of publications. There are a lot of books we have access to. But try to go find the one sentence you need in all of that, or try to get through a patent, this patent and that patent, and find the things that, oh, that's the second time that appeared, and therefore maybe it means something. And so that's where the research aspect is. And we think artificial intelligence approaches can be a way to sift through that and bring us information quicker and easier. And we have a team that is leading edge. We've stored terabytes of our personal archives of reference material on an Amazon S3 data lake, and these people are working on the approaches to process that, index that, and develop tools to go in and find things, even based on equations, images, that kind of thing. And so that team, and the difference between that and just general AI is the meat, the core of what it's working on is that very specific information. We can tune the algorithms to our ZPE energy science stuff not the generic stuff that's out there looking over the internet for whatever. It's going to be all of the parsing and the ratings tools that the self-learning stuff is going to
Yeah.
be tweaked and tuned specifically to our needs, which that's exciting. So that's another. So we have 20 some teams. So those are two technical team, but then we have an electrical design team. We have a safety team. We have an admin team. So people that are just helping us with meetings and emails and taking notes and that kind of stuff. We have publicity, fundraising, all of these things, the team structure that was conceived of a couple years ago when the group was formed. We have probably 6 or 7 that of the 22 possible ones that are currently active. And as we go forward, more and more will become active. So we ask, anybody that's excited and interested in this kind of stuff, what we want are people to have interest, some time, and that will, and some skill of some sort. But as you can see from what I just said, the skill can be, corporate skill, it could be consciousness and meditation skills and whatever. We need everybody. And now imagine we get one of these things and it's getting close, and now we're poising to get it out. We're gonna need people who know all the social media, the access to the things that can write some stuff that can help us when it's time to release. We want it
Yeah.
out, but we want the message clear, and we want material for the general public so that they can understand what are you even talking about. And so at our website, you'll see some general information about what is ZPE, what are these types of devices, and what are we talking about. We're working on ones that is a vision for what we think will happen once these things are available and how that will benefit people. And we think it's important to help not only with the instrumentation or the vetted designs for people, but also to give them a context for how that can help them so that they buy into it and they help and they allow. Local rules are going to need to change. Like, you can't just go hook one of these up to your house. In many places it's illegal.
Oh,
So
really? Why is that?
it's primarily safety. That's one thing, but also there are government uh what's the word, approved monopolies. This is you have, and all the rules with just think of solar. You want to hook up solar, right? And you want to hook it up to your system on your house. You got permits. Somebody who's an approved installer with appropriate credentials has to be the
Yeah.
one that tunes it. Then the local utility has to come approve it before they can throw the switch. So there's a process there even for something like solar, but some places don't even allow solar. Some places don't allow solar to run the meter backwards. So, and then there's some locales where it's illegal to not be hooked up to the grid. I mean, it's not many of them, but there are some. So each state has rules. Each locale has rules, and we'll need people who know about that, but also have some interest in going, I can help. I'm going to write up a 2-pager. Here's the process you would do if you can get access to one of these machines, right? And you do. The local guy downloaded the things. He's making it in the machine shop. He's got 10 he's going to sell. They're ready to go. They based on the thing. There's business opportunities here for this kind of thing too, right? But okay, so I have one. Now what do I do with it? So here, talk to these people. Go, here's some examples. Here's a fill in the blank thing that you can take to your local board, to try to, get the rules changed or so on and so forth, whatever. It's millions of things that need to happen for this advantages to be realized.
Yeah, this part of the conversation kind of makes me think back on the sovereignty movement. Are you familiar with that in terms of people sort of pulling themselves out of the public system, going into the private system, reconstituting their constitutional rights. Have you?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's a reflection of they got pissed off enough about their whatever their situation was that it was
Yeah.
like, I just can't take this, just too frustrating, right? And different
Yeah.
states are so bad that, it's hard to get. There are stories like in California with Bill Maher taking 3 years to get his solar even to be able to be put on and stuff
Uh,
like that. But yeah, it's just it. But all I'm saying is all of that may be true, and certainly if you are off grid, or let's say you have cabins in the woods now, or you're running on a diesel generator, it's easy, right? You basically get one of these things that's built properly, and you just substitute it in your system
you're
for
good to
whatever
go. Yeah.
where you're and you're good to go, right? And or if you have your RV, right? You just take your RV and instead of running the propane generator or whatever, you just run it off this, So and then and also electrical vehicles, once one like that solid state thing that can do, let's say, can do 10, 20 kilovolts, that'll run a car on a truck. So, you can just do that.
Matt, what, if any, pushback has ZPEPG encountered as it's gotten into this, as you've perhaps made these relationships with people or inventors? Have you, if any, pushback yet from, the powers that be, say, that are keeping this secret and suppressed? Have you guys encountered anything
We
like that yet?
again, we don't have anything close enough for them to get too interested. I think they're worrying about other things at the moment, which we can be thankful to whatever's going on in the Senate and background there. That's probably more pressing for them to figure out what they're going to do about that if it stays on than us. Uh, so far, we have a team, and they have a few aspects. Their job is to pay attention to this. We haven't had any pushback at all that we're aware of. Occasionally, during a Zoom meeting, the screens will go wacky or something like that, but you don't know what's going on there particularly. Um, there's a feeling by some of our frequent flyers, we call them, that we have some ET protection on some stuff because they want us to succeed and they support us, but we have to do it. They're not going to give us the answer. But they will do what they can. So Greer talks about his protection, but he also claims that he's, been attacked before and survived, and some of his colleagues didn't survive. None of that's happened to us yet. We do feel like we're getting a couple have felt like they might have had some personal, like, physical, not somebody showing up and physically harming them, but energetically got some whacks. But it's inconsistent, and maybe, but
Okay.
they're fine, and so far, we're hopeful that we're allowed. Our working assumption is we're allowed by whatever combination of things would disallow. We're allowed to focus and do the production of electricity. We're not doing any propulsion, anti-grav, any weapons stuff. That's not indefinitely. It's in our bylaws, and that's not what we're interested in. We're not about that at all. We're about electricity. And I have had these, so why would we be allowed to do that? And if one has an assumption that the major players have this technology and have suppressed it, why would they have suppressed it? Whatever reason, why? Once you're part of the club, and there's an implicit thing that you won't be first,
It won't
right?
be first
But
to release it.
what happens if somebody that's not part of the club brings the stuff out, and now people know, about it, and you are the owners of the current electricity producing technologies, and you see these things out there that could replace, perhaps, in some circumstances, those larger utilities and infrastructure. Um, Within a year or two, they might just convert some plants over with some new technology that they were very quick to come up with, So it could be they might maybe even want us to, so that they can move on without being the one that does it first. Because then politically, business wise, we are responding to this new information in a way with our corporate expertise that we can look how great we are. We can do this stuff in a good way, fast, and by the way, it's painless for you guys because you can still hook up to the grid, and we'll just replace all the fossil fuel stuff with this stuff, and we might even lower your rates a little bit. Okay, so everybody benefits, from that standpoint. So that's a possibility too. That
Is that
maybe
perhaps the case with this solid state device that ZPE is getting a permission from folks in these organizations to allow this
I tried to
to
stay away
happen?
from speculation because yes, it could be,
Okay.
but it doesn't matter if it is or if it isn't, right? Because we do what we do based on the information we have. Speculation either way is not going to matter, right? If we knew we're getting permission to do it, we still have to come up with the money. We still have to get the time. We still have to organize the project. Our behavior wouldn't change. So that's kind of my personal thing. If my behavior is not going to change, then speculation is maybe,
So
maybe. I don't know.
is the engineer that's working on this technology, did he have to get permission in order to work with you guys?
Uh, there are not that I'm aware of, but again, let's say I knew something like that, and there was that kind of a relationship. These are types of things that are not necessarily public information. So we do have NDAs and and confidentiality, and it's not relevant. Our purpose is get the stuff out
Mm,
as quickly as possible that meets these, and all the other stuff is it's not relevant, right? It just, to me, that's a distraction. Well, what's the nefarious stuff going on about? What are the possibilities of, this, that, and the other thing? It doesn't matter. It's not, well, how is our behavior going to change? Like if we're being threatened, okay, then like address the threat. There's no such threat right now, right? We don't anticipate one, right? And so if we're dealing with an individual, here's what we are going to pay for. This is what you say you can deliver. Okay. This is what you're going to deliver. This is the time frame. This is what you're going to charge us. And we're going to pay you if this, and this, and these criteria are met. Normal contract stuff.
that's great. And that's, yeah, definitely the expectation. I'm sort of reminded of experience that Stephen Greer also shared with a project, I think about 10 years ago or so, maybe longer, where he contracted an engineer that hadn't been involved with special access projects, and he got the green light from his handlers to work with Greer. Greer contributed to the project, and then out of nowhere, somebody else came in and shut it down. And so I'm wondering um, you know, if anything like that is a possibility in any of the work that that Zero Point Energy Project Group is doing, or are these sort of things that I don't know, right?
Yeah,
I'm
to
thinking
learn
that we
from
should shift.
history, you would say I would say it's possible, right? It's possible because that's the history. So would we change our behavior? No. No, because we are driven to do this, right? And I will write the contracts that are gated on meeting metrics.
Mm,
So this much money, this much. So if at some point something happens, well, that money's gone, but it's all not gone, you know?
right. So it's a risk that
So
kind of comes with the territory,
yeah,
but
it
there's
is.
groundbreaking things here that we're working on. I mean, this is yeah, very interesting stuff.
And
So
again, one of our protections is being open about it, right? The more open you are about it, then the less apt that I mean, a lot of what had happened in the past is in small group settings with people who are trying to hold on to their technology and find people, to make money and on that, and then there's ego involved with I feel like I invented this stuff, so I am due some recognition, and applause, and as a whatever. But it's in our group, since it's all volunteer and it's all kind of a collective of people with all these different everybody's a piece of it, and then so there's much less of that ego attachment stuff, and we're trying to make sure as much information is available in real time as possible while we're going through it, which makes it more difficult if you try to get one person, then there's the rest of everybody else still kind of up to speed, know what's going on, can continue forth. It makes it harder for that kind of stuff to happen. So that's part of the design as well of the organization.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that's something where I think L1 can really help us with bringing things to light real time, right? Hey, this just happened. Boom. Hey, this just happened, right? So that's, like you said, I believe I agree, an added layer of protection and yeah, in collaboration with the greater consciousness of humanity as this is kind of being birthed. Um, that's fantastic. Thank you, Matt. I know we're kind of coming up to the hour, top of the hour here. So I guess in wrapping up, any specific things that we can do with level 1 to support ZPEPG's initiatives, and any parting thoughts?
Well, sure. You put up the web address, so by all means go there. You'll get some general information. If you would like to, if you're interested to get involved in some way with the organization, you'll find a member's application on that general site. And then once you're a member, you get access to the member site, which has more details and more learning and opportunities. You could get involved with various teams. And of course, we're a 501c3. So you'll find a donate button on the website too. So if you're so inclined, help us out by donating. And there's a little blurb there about where the money goes and that sort of thing. So right, we welcome all, and just by being interested in sharing our existence and our mission with others is also a plus for us. So whatever you can do, we appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Matt. I appreciate you for making the time. I know we're still early in the curve of getting this done, but it's a lot of progress has been made, and thanks so much. Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to interacting some more.
Thanks, Matt.